Welcome to Pillow Talk Dreams, where every night becomes a story and every story leads you to peace. If you love calm voices, gentle journeys, and stories that help you drift into dreams, then don't forget to subscribe and let your nights be a little softer. Now close your eyes and let the story begin. The Enchanted Library at 3 a.m. Elias Whitford had always loved libraries. Not the modern kind, bright LED lights, slick metal shelves, and rigid silence, but the old ones, the ones that creaked and whispered. Libraries with dust floating like tiny galaxies, with the smell of aging paper and forgotten stories. Places where time slowed or dissolved entirely. So when the old Harrington Library announced it would permanently close for renovations, Elias felt something sink in his chest. The library had been a quiet sanctuary throughout his childhood, and now, at 28, he still visited whenever the world felt too loud. That Friday night was meant to be his final visit. The building would shut its doors at midnight, but Elias, tired from work, distracted by a failing relationship, and feeling strangely nostalgic, arrived late. The time on his phone read 2:52 a.m. He expected the library to be dark, locked, and abandoned. Instead, its front door stood wide open. A faint golden glow slipped out onto the sidewalk, pooling around his feet like warm honey. The ancient stained glass windows radiated light as though the sun were rising inside, even though the sky above the street was a deep, velvety black. Elias hesitated. This can't be right. They closed at midnight. He stepped closer, peering through the open doorway. Inside, the library looked alive. Candles flickered in chandeliers that should have been long disconnected. The marble floors gleamed. Dust motes shimmered like drifting fireflies. Rows upon rows of books glowed faintly on the shelves, their spines illuminated with colors he'd never seen. Deep blues that pulsed gently, soft purples that radiated warmth, golds that shimmered like liquid light. It wasn't possible, not logically, not physically, not in this century. Still, something familiar tugged at him, a soft pull behind his ribs. Come in. He took a step across the threshold. Warmth washed over him. The air smelled of lavender, old parchment, and something sweet he couldn't name. A hush fell around him, not empty but full, like the entire building was holding its breath. The massive front doors slid shut behind him with the gentlest sigh. Elias turned. There was no lock on the inside, no handle, just a smooth wooden surface glowing faintly with symbols he didn't recognize. They resembled letters, but from no alphabet he knew. They shifted like ink floating on water. His heartbeat thudded. He should leave. He should call someone. He should welcome back Elias. His blood chilled. The voice was soft, melodic, and came from somewhere deep between the shelves. He couldn't tell if it belonged to a man or a woman or even a human. Elias swallowed. Hello. Who's there? A figure stepped forward. A young woman, maybe 25, with long black hair that shimmered like night sky and eyes that glowed faintly silver, as if catching moonlight. Her dress resembled old-fashioned librarian attire, but woven from silk threads that glowed softly. He had never seen her before, yet she smiled as though she'd known him forever. You came later than usual, she said, as if this were a routine meeting. But it's all right. The library waits. It always waits. Elias blinked. I think there's been a mistake. The building is supposed to be closed. It is, she replied calmly. To everyone except you. The air shifted. Something ancient stirred between the shelves. Elias stepped back. I don't understand. You don't have to yet, she held out her hand. My name is Lyra. I'm the keeper of this library, a library that only opens at 3 a.m. and only for those it chooses. Elia's breath caught. "This library chooses people," Lyra nodded gently. "And tonight," she continued, "it chose you." A tremor ran through him. He stared at her hand but didn't take it. "Why me?" Her silver eyes softened. "Because your heart is lost, and this place exists for the lost." Before he could answer, a soft chime echoed from the center of the library. The old clock mounted above the reading hall struck 3 o'clock in, but the sound didn't ring like an ordinary bell. It sounded like time itself exhaling. The entire library shimmered. The chandelier candles flared brighter. Book spines glowed. The air vibrated with a magic he felt in his bones like a forgotten lullaby. Lyra smiled. "It's time," she whispered. "Let me show you what the enchanted library keeps hidden from the world." She turned and began walking between the shelves. Something inside him, curiosity, longing, fate, pulled him after her. As they moved deeper into the library, Elias noticed something strange. The shelves were rearranging themselves. Books shifted, sliding into new positions with soft sighs. Entire aisles curved subtly as though the building were breathing and changing around them. The floor deepened in color with each step, from pale marble to warm oak to dark, polished stone. "This wasn't here before," Elias murmured. Lyra chuckled softly. "This part of the library does not exist during the day." Elias slowed. "Then when does it exist?" "Only at 3 a.m., she said, "when the veil between waking and dreaming grows thin." They reached a circular chamber at the end of a long corridor. At the center stood a reading table carved from crystal, shimmering softly. Dozens of floating candles orbited above it. Around the room were books bound in shimmering materials: glass, metal, stardust, fabrics that shifted like water. Lyra gestured to the shelves. "These are the volumes written by the library itself." Elias frowned. "Written by the library," she nodded. "You see, stories live everywhere, in thoughts, memories, dreams, fears. This place gathers them, preserves them, and sometimes completes them. It is a sanctuary for unfinished stories." Elias froze. "Unfinished stories?" "Yes," Lyra's gaze deepened. "Including yours." He felt something in his chest crack. "My story isn't unfinished." She tilted her head. "Isn't it? You drift through life without purpose. You carry the weight of heartbreak you never confronted. You dream of things you refuse to admit. You've lost more than you allow yourself to feel." Elias tried to speak, but nothing came out. Lyra placed a hand over his heart. Her touch felt warm, grounding. "This library did not choose you by accident." The candles dimmed. The chamber darkened. Only Lyra's silver eyes remained bright. "Tonight," she whispered, "you will discover the story you were meant to live." The table between them began to glow. A book appeared slowly, materializing from swirling golden dust. Its cover was deep blue, embroidered with faint silver threads that formed shifting patterns: mountains, seas, stars, and shadows. Elias stared. "What is that?" Lyra stepped back, her expression solemn. "That is your book." "My book. The life you have lived," she said softly. "The life you have forgotten, and the life you have yet to understand." His hand trembled as he reached toward it, but the moment his fingers brushed the cover, the entire library shook. A gust of wind spiraled through the chamber. Shelves rattled. Candles flared. The pages of the book flew open on their own, stopping on a blank page, except for a single line written in shimmering ink. At 3 o'clock a.m., Elias Whitford returned to the library that had been waiting for him. Elias' skin prickled. "This is impossible." Lyra watched him gently. "This is only the beginning." Another gust of wind surged through the room, and suddenly the blank page began to fill with words, fast, fluid, as though written by invisible hands. But the story wasn't about his past. It was writing his future. He stumbled back. Lyra, what's happening? Her features tightened. The library is awakening. It senses your presence. It feels your story starting. But what? She looked toward the shifting shelves, her expression darkening. Not all stories want to be told, and some will resist. The floor hummed, vibrating faintly under their feet. The shelves trembled. Something creaked in the darkness beyond the chamber. A long, low groaning sound like old wood twisting or a creature stirring. Elias swallowed. What was that? Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. Another story. Her silver eyes flickered toward the shadowed hallway. One that does not want this library open tonight. The lights dimmed. The book on the table snapped shut. The air grew cold. Lyra stepped closer to Elias. You must stay by my side, she murmured. No matter what you hear, no matter what calls your name. Why? Because, she whispered, this library holds stories that were never meant to wake. A chill crawled down his spine, and somewhere in the darkness between the shelves that rearranged themselves, a faint whisper echoed. Elias, he froze. Lyra grabbed his hand. It has begun. The candles blew out, and for the first time in his life, Elias realized that stories could be alive. Darkness swallowed the chamber so completely that Elias couldn't even see his own hands. Only Lyra's grip anchored him, her fingers firm and steady in the void. The silence that followed was not empty. It pulsed, it breathed, it listened. Elias' heart hammered in his chest. Lyra, what's happening? Stay close, she whispered. Her voice was soft but carried an unshakable command. The library is shifting realms. Realms. It's adjusting to your presence, as it does for all chosen visitors. But tonight, something else stirred with it. Her grip tightened, and he sensed the tension in her usually calm demeanor. We must move. Now. Elias felt a tug as she pulled him forward through the darkness. Each step pressed into unseen ground, but the air around them moved strangely, like currents of water. Silver light flared softly ahead, not from candles, from Lyra herself. Her eyes glowed brighter, illuminating her sharp features and the swirling motes of dust in the air. With each step she took, tiny runes appeared under her feet. Delicate, shimmering, fading instantly. Elias recognized none of them, yet they felt familiar in an impossible way, like echoes of forgotten dreams. As they moved deeper, shapes emerged. Shelves, thousands of them, endless rows stretching into blackness, yet glowing faintly as if lit from within. Each book pulsed with a heartbeat like rhythm, some fast, some slow, some quiet. Some loud enough to rattle the wood around them. Lyra slowed her pace. We've entered the whispering aisles. Elias whispered, why do they glow like that? They are alive, she murmured. Stories here breathe, they think, they remember. A shiver ran along Elias' spine. And they whisper, Lyra added softly. Only now did he hear it, the faint, overlapping murmur of 1,000 voices. Not loud enough to distinguish words, not soft enough to ignore. A constant river of murmuring sound drifting from all directions. Don't listen too closely, Lyra warned. Their whispers can draw you into their worlds. He nodded, though his gaze kept drifting to the glowing books. Some looked warm and welcoming, glowing with gold or soft blue light. Others were bound in materials that made his stomach twist, cracked leather, darkened metal, scales he hoped weren't what they looked like. These books didn't glow. They absorbed the light around them. Elias tore his eyes away. What was calling my name earlier? He asked quietly. Lyra exhaled slowly as though preparing herself. Every story wants a reader. Most wait patiently, she said. But some rare, dangerous ones reach out, they hunger. They cling to unfinished souls or to those who carry broken pasts. Elias felt the sting of her words. Why me? You carry a fracture inside you, she said gently. A wound that has not healed. Such wounds call to certain stories and attract others. A distant thud sounded somewhere deep in the aisles, followed by a low growl. Elia stiffened. What was that? Lyra didn't answer immediately. Her gaze sharpened toward the darkness between the shelves. A forgotten narrative, she murmured. One that hasn't been opened in centuries. Another thud, closer. The shelves trembled, dust drifting down. Elias tugged at her sleeve. We need to leave. We can't yet. She placed her free hand over his heart. A calming warmth spread through his chest. You are bound to your story now. The library will follow your emotional state. If you panic, it panics. Elias inhaled shakily. So did the library. The whispers grew agitated, fluttering faster, louder. Books rattled softly in their shelves. Lyra lifted his chin with a gentle but firm touch. Look at me, she said softly. You must breathe, slow, calm. He tried, inhale, exhale. His breath steadied. So did the whispers, the rattling eased. Good, Lyra murmured. The library responds to harmony, you must remember that. Another murmur drifted from the shadows, a voice, low and broken, whispering his name again. Elias. This time it sounded closer, and familiar. He froze. I know that voice, he whispered. Lyra stiffened. Do not follow it. It sounds like. Know when you knew, she said firmly. The library copies voices. It mimics memories. It knows what will draw you from the path. Elias swallowed hard. But whose voice is it imitating? Lyra turned to face him fully. Someone you lost. His breath caught. That wound inside him, the one he tried to bury, throbbed sharply. But before he could speak, a soft glow emerged ahead. The aisles opened into a circular clearing, a reading rotunda with high ceilings of stained glass that pulsed with gentle light. Floating orbs drifted like lazy fireflies, illuminating the marble floor with shifting patterns. At the center stood an ornate desk carved from black oak, etched with silver patterns that rippled like waves. On the desk sat a book, small, simple, bound in soft brown leather. Elias frowned. That book, it looks normal. Lyra's eyes softened. It is the most important book in this entire library. He blinked. Why? Lyra stepped forward and touched the book with reverence. Because it is empty. Her fingertips brushed the cover. And because it belongs to you. Elias' heart thudded. No, he said quickly. My book is in the chamber. The blue one. That one is your past and present, she said. This one is your path. My path. Your future. The library gives each chosen visitor a blank volume, one that forms only when they are ready to face themselves. Elias stared at the simple book. It looked unassuming, ordinary, but somehow heavier than any object in the room. Lyra stepped aside, giving him space. When you open it, she said softly, it will show you the first truth you've been running from. Elias' stomach twisted. I don't know if I want to see that. You must, she said gently. The library brought you here to heal what has been buried too long. He approached the desk slowly. His hands trembled as he reached out. His fingers brushed the leather thud. A violent impact shook the shelves. Books flew off. The floor trembled. Lyra grabbed Elias' arm and pulled him protectively behind her. No, she hissed under her breath. Not yet. A growl rumbled from the darkness. Another impact. A shelf toppled, crashing to the floor. Elias stumbled back. Lyra, what is that? Her silver eyes blazed bright. A broken story. Something massive lurked between the shelves, its form shrouded in shadow. Elias couldn't make out details, only glimpses. Fingers too long, a hunchback. A face blurred like smeared ink. Its voice slithered from the darkness. Elias, give me your story. Elias' entire body froze. Lyra stepped forward, raising her palm. Silver runes flared in her hand. You are forbidden in this aisle, she commanded. Return to your binding. The creature snarled. It took another step forward. The runes on the shelves flickered and died. Lyra's expression faltered. "That's not possible," the creature lunged. Lyra shoved Elias aside. "Run," he stumbled backward, but something yanked him from behind. Not roughly, gently, as though guiding rather than grabbing. He twisted, expecting another creature, but saw instead the blank brown book glowing softly on the desk. The light radiated outward like a protective barrier. Lyra stared at it in shock. "It's responding to you already." Before Elias could question her, the creature roared. It lunged. Lyra threw up a shield of glowing symbols. The creature slammed against it, cracks spreading instantly across the barrier. "Elias," Lyra shouted, "open the book. I don't know how. Just do it." The barrier cracked further. The creature pushed harder, its distorted form stretching across the shield. "Elias, give me," Lyra screamed. "Open it." Elias grabbed the book and pulled. The cover snapped open, a blast of light erupted outward. Not warm, not gentle, brilliant, fierce. White gold radiance engulfed the rotunda. The creature shrieked, recoiling as smoke rose from its form. The shield shattered, but the light from the book grew stronger. The creature staggered. Its shadowy form rippled, tearing apart at the seams. New. It dissolved into drifting ink-like mist, scattering through the air like burnt ashes. The rotunda fell silent. Elias collapsed to his knees, chest heaving. Lyra rushed to his side. "Are you hurt?" She cupped his face, her glowing eyes scanning him. I'm fine," he panted. What was that?" Lyra hesitated, then spoke with quiet gravity. "A story that has lost its ending," she said. "One that wandered too long, searching for someone to complete it." She placed a hand over the still glowing book in his lap. "And it thought you were the perfect host." Elias shivered. Lyra gently squeezed his shoulder. "You did well," she said softly. "The book responded to you, it protected you." Elias swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" Lyra slowly exhaled. "It means your story carries more power than I believed." She looked toward the scattered shelves, her expression darkening. "And it means we are no longer alone in here." Elias lifted the blank book. A faint line had appeared on the first page, just one sentence. "Every lost soul must face their truth." Lyra read it quietly. Her voice trembled, just barely. "Your journey begins now." The rotunda slowly settled into silence after the creature's disappearance. Dust floated lazily in the faint glow of the floating orbs, drifting like dream snow across the marble floor. Elias sat on the cold ground, still clutching the blank book as though it were the only thing keeping him tethered to reality. Lyra knelt beside him, her silver eyes narrowed in thought. "Elias," she said softly, "look at me." He lifted his head. His heartbeat still pounded against his ribs, but the tremors in his hands had begun to fade. "What happened to it?" he asked, swallowing hard. "The creature." Lyra glanced toward the darkness between the collapsed shelves. "It has returned to the unwritten realm," she said. "Stories like that have no form of their own. They borrow from shadows, memories, fears, anything they can hold onto. That's terrifying." "It is," she agreed quietly. "But it is also sad," he blinked. "Sad," Lyra nodded. "Broken stories wander because they were once meaningful, once loved, once alive, but without their ending, without closure, they unravel, they lose themselves." Her gaze flickered back to him, just as broken people do. Elias looked down at his hands. He didn't reply. Lyra's voice softened. "Come. We cannot stay here." She stood and offered her hand. Elias hesitated for a moment before accepting it. Her touch was warm, grounding, and the tension in his chest eased just slightly. As she helped him up, the blank book glowed faintly in his arms, as though aware of its purpose. "You said this book is my future," Elias murmured. "How do I read it?" Lyra led him out of the rotunda, stepping over fallen books. "You don't read it," she said. "You shape it. That's not an answer. It's the only one." The whispering aisles shifted as they walked. Shelves rearranged, aisles twisted into new paths, floors changed from marble to wood to stone again. The library was alive, watching, reacting, shifting around him like a vast, breathing organism. Elia's eyes scanned the glowing spines of books they passed. "What are these stories?" he asked. "Why do some look normal and others not?" Lyra paused to brush her fingers across a shelf of softly glowing books. "These are dream stories, gentle ones. They soothe wandering minds." She pointed toward a row of darker volumes, bindings cracked and pulsing faintly. The Enchanted Library at 3 a.m. Elias Whitford had always loved libraries. Not the modern kind, bright LED lights, slick metal shelves, and rigid silence, but the old ones, the ones that creaked and whispered. Libraries with dust floating like tiny galaxies, with the smell of aging paper and forgotten stories. Places where time slowed or dissolved entirely. So when the old Harrington Library announced it would permanently close for renovations, Elias felt something sink in his chest. The library had been a quiet sanctuary throughout his childhood, and now, at 28, he still visited whenever the world felt too loud. That Friday night was meant to be his final visit. The building would shut its doors at midnight, but Elias, tired from work, distracted by a failing relationship, and feeling strangely nostalgic, arrived late. The time on his phone read 2:52 a.m. He expected the library to be dark, locked, and abandoned. Instead, its front doors stood wide open. A faint golden glow slipped out onto the sidewalk, pooling around his feet like warm honey. The ancient stained glass windows radiated light as though the sun were rising inside, even though the sky above the street was a deep, velvety black. Elias hesitated. This can't be right. They closed at midnight. He stepped closer, peering through the open doorway. Inside, the library looked alive. Candles flickered in chandeliers that should have been long disconnected. The marble floors gleamed. Dust motes shimmered like drifting fireflies. Rows upon rows of books glowed faintly on the shelves, their spines illuminated with colors he'd never seen. Deep blues that pulsed gently, soft purples that radiated warmth, golds that shimmered like liquid light. It wasn't possible, not logically, not physically, not in this century. Still, something familiar tugged at him, a soft pull behind his ribs. "Come in." He took a step across the threshold. Warmth washed over him. The air smelled of lavender, old parchment, and something sweet he couldn't name. A hush fell around him, not empty but full, like the entire building was holding its breath. The massive front doors slid shut behind him with the gentlest sigh. Elias turned. There was no lock on the inside, no handle, just a smooth wooden surface glowing faintly with symbols he didn't recognize. They resembled letters, but from no alphabet he knew. They shifted like ink floating on water. His heartbeat thudded. He should leave. He should call someone. He should welcome back Elias. His blood chilled. The voice was soft, melodic, and came from somewhere deep between the shelves. He couldn't tell if it belonged to a man or a woman, or even a human. Elias swallowed. "Hello, who's there?" A figure stepped forward. A young woman, maybe 25, with long black hair that shimmered like night sky and eyes that glowed faintly silver, as if catching moonlight. Her dress resembled old-fashioned librarian attire, but woven from silk threads that glowed softly. He had never seen her before, yet she smiled as though she'd known him forever. "You came later than usual," she said, as if this were a routine meeting. "But it's all right. The library waits. It always waits." Elias blinked. I think there's been a mistake. The building is supposed to be closed. It is, she replied calmly, to everyone except you. The air shifted. Something ancient stirred between the shelves. Elia stepped back. I don't understand. You don't have to yet, she held out her hand. My name is Lyra. I'm the keeper of this library, a library that only opens at 3 a.m. and only for those it chooses. Elia's breath caught. This library chooses people, Lyra nodded gently. And tonight, she continued, it chose you. A tremor ran through him. He stared at her hand but didn't take it. Why me? Her silver eyes softened. Because your heart is lost, and this place exists for the lost. Before he could answer, a soft chime echoed from the center of them. And these, she whispered, are nightmare stories. The library holds them so they cannot escape into sleeping minds. Elias shivered. Lyra kept walking. The library is not only a place of knowledge, it is a protector, a guardian of the mind's most fragile places. And what about the empty book? That, she said, is your soul's mirror. He tightened his grip. I don't want to open it again. You won't need to. It will open itself when the time is right. They continued through the aisles until they reached a tall arched doorway. As Lyra approached, silver light ran across the frame like veins igniting. Elias hesitated. What is this place? Lyra placed a hand on the arch. The room of echoes. Sounds ominous. It is a room that reveals truths, she said quietly. Truths you've hidden from yourself. Elias stiffened. Lyra, I don't. You must. She turned to him, eyes glowing softly. The library brought you here for a reason. Something in you is unresolved, something painful, something you've buried for too long. He swallowed, throat suddenly tight. What if I'm not ready to face it? No one ever is, Lyra said gently, but you must. Otherwise, the broken stories will continue to hunt you. Elias looked at the blank book in his arms. He knew deep down she was right. Lyra stepped aside and gestured toward the doorway. You won't be alone, she said. I'll be with you. Elias inhaled shakily, then stepped through. The room of echoes, the space inside was enormous, far larger than the exterior suggested. It stretched infinitely in every direction, a dark void illuminated only by a faint silver mist drifting across the floor. Each step Elias took echoed softly, the sound lingering as though the room inhaled each note. Lyra entered behind him, the door sealing silently. No shelves, no books, just darkness. Elias turned to her. What do I do? Lyra motioned to the book. Hold it. He did. The blank cover pulsed once like a heartbeat, then again. Then a soft glow emerged from its surface, filling the void around them with warm, golden light. The mist began to swirl, gathering into shapes, outlines, figures. Elias' breath hitched. A familiar voice echoed through the darkness, soft and warm. Elias. His chest clenched. No, it couldn't be. A silhouette formed in the mist, a woman's shape, delicate, graceful. The golden light sharpened her features. Elias' throat closed. His eyes burned. Elias, Lyra whispered, who is she? He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The woman stepped closer, her smile luminous and heartbreakingly familiar. Elias, she said again, it's really you. Lyra turned toward him, her gaze sharp. Tell me her name. Elias swallowed hard, his lips trembled. Clara, Lyra's brows lowered. The one you lost. He nodded once barely. Clara moved closer, her face glowing soft and warm like morning sunlight. Elias' knees weakened. Lyra touched his arm. Remember, this room shows echoes, memories, not reality. But when Clara spoke again, her voice cracked something inside him clean in half. I've missed you, she whispered. Elias felt a sound claw its way from his throat. Clara, you're not real. Her smile softened. I'm as real as your memory of me. Lyra stepped protectively in front of him. Do not trust what you see. The room of echoes can show truth, but it can also show temptation. Clara's eyes glimmered with sadness. You left me, she said. You walked away. Elias flinched. No, no, Clara, I didn't. Yes, you did. Her voice trembled. You left before you could say goodbye. Lyra's expression darkened. Elias, she warned, this is a dangerous echo. It's pulling from your pain. But she's right, he shouted suddenly. His voice cracked. Lyra stepped back, surprise flickering in her eyes. Elias' breath quivered as he stared at Clara. I wasn't there, he whispered. You died alone. Clara's face softened with sorrow. You never forgave yourself, she murmured. Not once. Not even for a moment. His chest ached, his vision blurred. I loved you, he said, voice breaking. Clara stepped forward and cupped his face. Her touch felt warm, real, too real. No, Lyra said sharply, grabbing Elias' shoulder. This is crossing the boundary. Elias stepped back. He shook his head. But it's her. It's not, Lyra said. It is a memory shaped by your guilt. Nothing more. Clara looked at Lyra with cold eyes. Leave us, she whispered. He never needed you. Lyra stiffened. Elias, she said quietly, she is turning into a memory lure. Elias' breathing grew ragged. Clara wrapped her arms around him. He felt her heartbeat, her warmth, her hair against his cheek. Stay with me, she whispered. I can make all your pain disappear. Lyra stepped forward, voice hardening. Elias, she's feeding on your grief. If you accept her, the echo will consume you. Clara's grip tightened. The room darkened. Black mist began curling around her feet. Her eyes turned hollow. Her skin cracked like breaking porcelain. Elias froze in terror. Clara's voice dropped into a chilling, whispering moan. Don't leave me again. Lyra thrust her hand forward. Silver runes ignited in the air. The echo twisted, shrieking as cracks spread across its body like shattered glass. Elias stumbled back, nearly falling. Clara's figure disintegrated piece by piece, her face the last to fade, whispering, Why didn't you save me? Then she was gone. Silence returned. Elias collapsed to his knees, sobbing into his hands. Lyra knelt beside him. Not close enough to touch him, close enough to offer presence without pressure. Elias, she murmured, you are not responsible for her death. He shook his head violently. I wasn't there. I should have been with her. I know, Lyra said firmly. Her loss is not your fault. She was everything, Elias whispered, tears dripping onto the blank book. And I couldn't save her. Some stories end before we want them to, Lyra said softly. But that does not make you their author. Elias wiped his eyes with shaking hands. The blank book flickered. Gold lines appeared on the next page, forming a sentence. Lyra read aloud. Only when the heart breaks open can the truth begin to heal. Elias stared at the glowing words, then nodded slowly. Lyra placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Come, she whispered. There is one more echo this room needs to show you. Elias stiffened. No, he whispered hoarsely. I can't. You must, Lyra said softly, because until you face it, the library will remain in danger. The mist stirred again. Figures began forming. Elias' heart dropped into his stomach. Lyra's eyes widened. She whispered, almost afraid, Elias, who is that? Elias' voice trembled. That, he whispered, voice breaking again, is me. A younger version of himself stood in the mist, eyes empty, shoulders slumped, holding something in his hands. Something Elias never wanted to see again. The moment he had tried to bury his entire life. Lyra touched his arm gently. It's time, she whispered, and the echo stepped forward. Evelyn stood before the shimmering doorway, her breath slow, her heartbeat steady. The golden frame pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat on the other side was calling her name. As she stepped closer, the silver mist parted, revealing a soft corridor lit by floating candles that hovered like sleepy fireflies. The air smelled different here, old parchment, warm wood, and something else. Something nostalgic, like the scent of a place you once loved but couldn't remember. She stepped inside. The door sealed behind her with a gentle whisper. The corridor stretched long and narrow, lined on both sides by tall shelves filled not with books but glowing orbs, each one the size of a small apple. Some glowed brightly, others flickered weakly, and a few were dim as dying embers. Evelyn felt a pull toward them. A soft voice in the corridor said, "These are memories forgotten by their owners but kept safe here." She turned, expecting to see the old librarian ghost again, but no one was there. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. One of the orbs tugged at her hand, drawing her closer. Inside it, she saw a memory, her memory. A small girl running through a rainy street, laughing, holding a book too big for her tiny hands. Evelyn felt a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She touched the orb and the scene grew clearer. The little girl curled up on a staircase, reading under a lantern. Her face lit up with joy. Her own voice, much younger, echoed softly. "Books can save you, Evelyn, don't forget." Her throat tightened. She whispered, "I remember this." Another orb floated forward. This one shimmered pale blue. Inside, she saw a dim room, her mother's voice humming a lullaby as she placed a blanket over young Evelyn. It was the night before they moved away from her childhood home. A home Evelyn believed she had forgotten. A home she thought she didn't care about. But memories returned like gentle waves, warming her chest. She whispered, "I didn't forget, I just buried it." The corridor deepened, shifting as new orbs drifted around her, memories of people she once knew, places she once loved, little moments she never realized held meaning. One orb, however, stayed dark, completely black, no light inside. Evelyn felt uneasy. She reached out cautiously. The orb felt cold like winter night air. When she touched it, a voice, faint and trembling, whispered, "Not yet, you're not ready." She pulled her hand back, her fingers tingled, her heartbeat quickened. From deep inside the corridor, a soft glow appeared, much brighter than the others. A golden orb floated toward her, humming like a heartbeat. The librarian ghost appeared beside it, his form flickering like candlelight. He spoke softly, almost sadly. "This one isn't forgotten, it's waiting." Evelyn frowned. "Waiting for what?" The ghost gave a weak smile. "For you to open it." The golden orb drifted into her palms, warmer than anything in this place. Inside it, she glimpsed something, a shadow, a doorway, and someone standing behind it. Someone she recognized. She gasped. The librarian placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Some memories change us, some remind us, and some lead us to the truth this library wants you to find. Evelyn swallowed nervously. "Should I open it?" The candles flickered in response, as if the entire corridor awaited her decision. The ghost whispered, "Only if you are ready to remember the night everything changed." Evelyn closed her fingers around the orb. It pulsed once. Her world went silent. Then the golden light burst open. Everything went white, and she fell into the memory. Evelyn fell through a tunnel of light, silent, weightless, without direction. The golden glow swirled around her like liquid sun, pulling her deeper into the memory she had sealed away. Her feet touched ground. The world solidified, and suddenly she was standing in a familiar neighborhood street. But it wasn't the present. It was years ago. The sky above her was cloudy, dark with mist. Street lamps flickered. The air smelled like wet leaves after a long rain. She knew this place. She recognized every crack in the pavement, every leaning fence, every window glowing softly through the night. Her childhood street, her breath caught in her throat. A soft voice echoed behind her. "Evelyn, come on, we're going to be late." She turned. There she was, A younger Evelyn, maybe 12, running down the sidewalk with her backpack bouncing against her side. In her hand, she carried a book with a blue cover, the same book from the memory corridor, the one she used to read over and over until the pages started to wear. Young Evelyn didn't see her older self standing there. She ran through her like a ghost, because in this memory, that's all Evelyn was. Evelyn followed her younger self down the street. The memory pulled her toward a small house with yellow curtains, her old home. Lights glowed inside the windows. A soft humming drifted through the door, a voice she hadn't heard in years, her mother's. Before Evelyn could step closer, a shadow moved in the yard. A tall figure, wrapped in a coat, standing still beside the gate. The figure turned slowly toward her. It was the librarian ghost. Except here in the memory, he wasn't a ghost. He looked alive, warm, human. He smiled gently. "You've returned to the beginning." Evelyn's voice trembled. "Why are you here? How are you in my memory?" He didn't answer directly. Instead, he gestured to the house. "You're not remembering everything." "Not yet." Young Evelyn rushed inside. The warm light spilled out as the door swung shut. Evelyn stepped forward, but the librarian lifted a hand. "Once you cross this door, the truth will come back to you. All of it." She hesitated. Part of her wanted to turn back, escape the memory, return to the quiet corridors of the library. But the other part, the part that had been empty for so long, needed to know. She walked up to the door. Her hand shook as she touched the handle. The door opened without a sound. Warmth washed over her like a blanket. Inside, the house looked exactly as she remembered. Small, cozy, filled with books, little drawings on the wall, the soft glow of a lamp on the kitchen table. And standing there, humming as she stirred a pot on the stove, her mother. Alive. Evelyn's chest tightened painfully. She stepped closer, though she knew her mother couldn't see her. A young Evelyn sat on the kitchen floor, reading her book, swinging her feet happily. Everything looked peaceful. Then the wind outside roared suddenly. The lights flickered. The window rattled. Evelyn froze. A feeling cold, heavy swept through her. Her older self whispered, "I remember this night." The librarian stood behind her, silent. A knock came at the door, harsh, urgent. Young Evelyn looked up. Her mother wiped her hands quickly on her apron. "Stay here, sweetheart." She walked toward the door. Older Evelyn's hands shook. Her breath turned shallow. "No," she whispered. "Please don't open it." But the memory could not hear her. The door opened. A man stood outside, face hidden by the shadow of the porch roof. His voice was rough, trembling. "You moved the book, didn't you?" Her mother's eyes widened with fear. "Not now," she whispered. "Please, Evelyn is here." The man stepped inside. Evelyn's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She tried to move closer, tried to stop him, but her hands passed through the memory like smoke. Her mother shielded young Evelyn with her arm, but the man pushed her aside, lunging toward the table, toward something hidden underneath a stack of papers. A book bound in deep green leather, not like the ones on the shelves. Older Evelyn's breath caught, her voice broke. I remember that book." The librarian nodded slowly. "It was the beginning of your journey and the reason you found the Enchanted Library." Before Evelyn could respond, the memory began to crack, like glass fracturing around her. The golden light dimmed. Her mother shouted. Young Evelyn screamed. The man grabbed the green book, and everything shattered. The memory dissolved into bright white light. Evelyn fell again, falling deeper, not into another memory, but into something darker, something the library had kept hidden from her. Evelyn landed hard on a cold marble floor. The world around her was silent, too silent. No shelves, no corridors, no warm glow, only darkness and a dim green light pulsing in the distance. She rose slowly, her breathing uneven. her hands trembling from the memory she had just witnessed. The image of the man storming into her childhood home burned behind her eyelids, the way her mother shielded her, the shadow of the book he had grabbed. That green book, Evelyn whispered into the empty darkness. What was that book? Why did he want it? The darkness answered with a hum, soft at first, then growing louder, resonating through the stone floor under her feet. The green light swelled, taking form. It lifted from the ground and hovered before her, glowing like a lantern made of starlight. Only now she saw what it truly was, a book, bound in the same deep green leather, edges shimmering gold, patterns swirling on its cover like ink still drying, the same book from her memory, the one the stranger took. Evelyn stepped toward it. The air grew warmer. The hum turned into a rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat. She whispered, "You're alive." The book opened on its own. Pages flipped rapidly, faster than human eyes could follow until they stopped on a blank page. Words began to form, glowing in soft green script. "You were meant to return." Her chest tightened. The book wrote again, "You knew me once." Evelyn stared at the glowing letters as they faded and reappeared. A memory tried to push through the fog in her mind, something half forgotten, half buried. She reached toward the page. The moment her fingertips touched the paper, a shock of warmth ran up her arm. The world spun. The darkness dissolved, and she stood inside another memory. But this one was not from her childhood. It was older. Ancient stone walls surrounded her, massive, carved with symbols she couldn't read. Torches flickered in iron brackets. Bookshelves spiraled up into impossible heights. She was inside an old version of the Enchanted Library, a much older version. She turned, startled, to see a familiar figure in the torchlight, the librarian, but younger, alive. His robes were clean, not tattered. His hair was dark, not gray. His eyes glowed not with ghostly light, but with human warmth. He looked up from a large desk and smiled at her. "So you found it," he said gently. Evelyn stepped back. "H, how are you here?" You're not even a ghost," he finished for her, amused. "In your time, perhaps, but memories keep the truth alive." He gestured to the green book lying open on the table. "This book chose you long before you knew the library existed." Evelyn's stomach tightened. "Why me?" The librarian walked closer. His expression softened. "Because you can hear the things others cannot," she blinked. "Like books whispering." "Yes," he said, "and memories calling and doors waiting to be opened." She shook her head. "This doesn't make sense. I grew up in a normal home, a normal life." "I didn't." He raised a hand. "You grew up near a forgotten entrance." Evelyn froze. "What?" The librarian stepped back toward the towering stone wall behind him. He touched an engraving shaped like a crescent moon. A doorway appeared, glowing faintly green. Evelyn's heart pounded. "That door," the librarian continued, "was once connected to this library. Your mother knew it. She kept it hidden from you. She kept the book hidden too." "Why?" Evelyn whispered. His face darkened slightly. "Because the library protects, and the world does not understand things it cannot control." A rumble echoed through the old stone hall. Dust drifted from above. The memory trembled. The librarian looked upward, concerned. "We are running out of time. This memory is unstable. The library pulled you here so you could learn the truth, but truth comes in pieces." The green book snapped shut. Its glow brightened, too bright to look at. Evelyn shielded her eyes. The librarian's voice grew faint, fading with the world around him. "Find the lost door, Evelyn, before someone else does." White light swallowed everything. When Evelyn opened her eyes, she was back on the cold marble floor. The green book lay at her feet, closed, silent, no longer glowing. But its presence pressed into her mind like a whisper she could not ignore. The truth was close, and danger was closer. Evelyn stood motionless, the cold marble beneath her feet grounding her as the green book slowly quieted into stillness. The librarian ghost appeared again, faint, flickering, as if weakened by how much he had revealed. His voice flowed gently. "The last piece of the truth lies ahead. You must finish what was started long ago." Evelyn swallowed. "The lost door, where is it?" The ghost extended his hand and pointed. For the first time, the floor beneath her shifted. The marble melted into soft mist, and from that mist, a long hallway began to form, lined with shelves that curved like a spiral leading into eternity. Lanterns lit one by one as the path extended forward. At the end of the hall stood a single doorway, a crescent moon symbol on its surface, the same symbol she saw in the ancient memory. Evelyn stepped forward. She felt the tug of fate in every breath. This was the last stop, the true heart of the library. She reached the door. The green book floated into her hands, heavy and warm. The librarian ghost's voice whispered, "You are the bridge between worlds, Evelyn. Open it." Her fingers brushed the crescent moon. The door glowed faintly, then swung open with the softest sigh. Inside was a circular room, ancient but beautiful, with carved stone walls and a glass ceiling through which she could see the stars shimmering like silver lanterns. Books hovered in patterns, drifting gently in the air as if asleep. At the room's center stood a pedestal. A crack in the stone showed where something had once rested, the same shape as the green book. Evelyn understood immediately. This was the book's home. She placed it gently into the space. The pedestal lit up, green, gold, and white weaving together like a heartbeat returning. For the first time, the library spoke, not in words, but in warmth, soft, overwhelming warmth that flooded her chest, her mind, her memories. The walls lit up with images, her mother, younger, discovering the lost door, the librarian training guardians of the library, the man who took the book, a seeker who feared what he did not understand, her mother hiding the book to protect her child, Evelyn unknowingly growing up next to a gateway of magic, and finally Evelyn being chosen. The lights faded, the room quieted, a calm voice, gentle and old, filled the space. "Thank you, Evelyn, the library is whole again." She exhaled, tears warming her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt complete. The librarian ghost materialized beside her, clearer, stronger than before. His smile was full of peace. "My duty is done. Now I can rest." Evelyn stepped closer. "Will I ever see you again?" He bowed his head softly. "Every time you open a book." His light grew brighter, then drifted upward, dissolving into a gentle shower of silver sparkles that faded into the ceiling. He was gone, but the library remained. The library's gift, the pedestal, slid back into the floor, revealing a wooden box beneath it, simple, old, etched with a crescent moon. Evelyn opened it. Inside was a single key, the handle shaped like a sleeping star. A whisper echoed, "You are now the keeper of the door." The key fit perfectly into a small archway at the back of the room. When she turned it, a soft wind blew through her hair. A doorway opened, not to a bookshelf, not to another corridor, but to her childhood street. The same street illuminated by misty lamplight. The same home, quiet and warm. The same place where everything began. She stepped through. The moment she crossed the threshold, the door behind her closed gently, vanishing like fog at sunrise. She was home, but everything felt different. She no longer carried the emptiness. She no longer carried the unanswered questions. The library had healed the missing spaces inside her. Evelyn looked up at the night sky. A crescent moon smiled down at her. She whispered softly, "Thank you." And somewhere far beyond the visible world, in a library that existed between dreams and dawn, A page turned itself and rested. The end.